Beloved, on May 15, 2018, in a dream, I was given a verse, Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 8. After I read it, I was taken to a city where there had been a strong earthquake. This earthquake was of such magnitude that the cars could not travel because a very strong earthquake had passed. There were people searching desperately for their relatives, and they walked the streets up and down trying to find their lost family member or friend. A lady in the dream gave me a baby. Maybe was about a year old, and told me to take care of the baby until it was known what to do because the parents had died. So I was amazed and asked, how did she survive and her parents didn't? She answered, her parents had come out because of the anathema. At that point, they gave me Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 5 and Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 5. Then, in the dream, I asked, which anathema? And was told, the movie in the theater of the place where they were. So, at that moment, I left there with the girl in my arms and began to take care of her until she could be adopted by someone. I taught her about God, but incredibly, at her young age, she was attracted to unusual and strange things. So while I was walking with the girl, I met a young woman who told me, as much as I ran, I could only reach the corner of that church, and I stayed in its courtyard because I could not enter, because I was full of anathemas. At this moment, when she told me she was full of anathemas, I thought, Lord, you really have to clarify this for me because I don't understand many things. Then she kept telling me. I thought outside I was going to die, but the water started to go down before reaching my feet. I hugged that young woman, took her to a safer place, and at that moment, Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 20 to 21 was handed over to me. I left there. I went with the baby to a more secluded place of the city, and there I saw 3 young people and an adult. They were struggling to live. They were bruised, wet, and their clothes were torn. They were stunned by what had happened, and they were talking to each other, and I heard them say, how could this happen? Said one to the other. But when he said that to the other replied, at least our devices did not get wet, nor did they break. Then at that moment I looked and saw how each of them carried a cell phone, and they clung to it as if it were their life preserver. I insisted that they pray for others and stop their activities, but I could not convince them. Suddenly, a tall man, I saw that he was in his workshop fixing something, and he came out and I asked him, how are you? And he answered me, I am with a lot of work, and this crack is huge, and I am going to fix it. Suddenly, I looked like that at his side where he pointed to me, and I saw a street that had a very large and tremendous crack. So I said to him, how will you do it? To which he answered me, among many, we will do it. Then I saw him withdraw, and I saw him enter a hole on that road. It was a very deep hole. I was very worried, but I saw him as calm, and I realized that he himself did not realize of the danger that stalked him. I saw how a strong current came and began to drag him. So I started to run beside him, but I couldn't hold him. But this, when I approached him to help him and leaned over, he snatched the girl from my hands and sank with her. So at that moment I screamed for help, but no one listened to me. And while I was in despair, Further down the current, the man was able to float a bit. Then at that moment I saw that he had the girl, and I grabbed her out of his hands. I cleaned her as best I could, and I realized that her health was not quite right, but she was still alive. So I ran and gave her a leaf to eat. I don't know which leaf it was, but I gave her a leaf to eat, and I saw how the girl breathed normally again. I saw that the man was doing nothing to get out of the hole in that street, and I urged him to do it, to which he replied that he was going to do it later because he was going to take a call. His device was ringing. I saw him there, that he was dealing with the cell phone, and a car was coming towards him, so I urged him to get out, but he was resisting. He didn't realize the danger that was coming upon him. So I put the girl to safety and reprimanded him and started pulling him until he came out. This person was bad. He did not coordinate. His movements were not well. He was not right, and he walked staggering with slow movements. So I asked one of the three young people for help, but none of them gave it. So at that moment, I helped him to sit on firm ground away from the street, and I went to see the young people and asked them why they did not heed my request for help. I saw that they were walking towards a store. They were not paying attention to me, and they continued walking to that nearby store that was there. They entered, and I also entered after them. I saw that in that store there were many things, but there was something that caught my attention a lot, more than all those other things that I saw at the beginning. They were like old metal statuettes that hung from a huge carousel from the ceiling of the store and said, "Take one for protection." So I looked and saw that they were all the same, and I asked, how do people know which one to choose if they all look alike? So when I asked that question, that I thought about it and expressed it and said it out loud, a lady looked at me and said, "This is the code." She showed me the code. This was because of the position that they occupied in that carousel. And when I saw the code, I saw that it said in this tremendous way, anathema from 1 to 4 for the car, anathema from 5 to 8 for the home, anathema for 9 to 12 for children, anathema from 13 to 16 for work. Seeing this, I was shocked and said, "This is hierarchy of demons, evil spells." Then the lady, laughing, said to me, "No, these are black and white protection for everyone." I saw how in that store there was everything for children, youth, adults, the elderly. I saw video games, rattles, movies, electronics, sports, things of house, things even edible, and they all had to do with that great carousel. I couldn't believe what was on that billboard-sized poster when I stared at it. There were several sections, and they read as follows: Anathemas Section 1, Electronic; Anathemas Section 2, Shoes and Purses; Anathemas Section 3, Accessories; Anathemas Section 4, Jewelry; Anathemas Section 5, Clothing; Anathemas Section 6, Household Appliances; Anathemas Section 7, Food; Anathemas Section 8, Houses; Anathemas, section 9, cars. Anathemas, section 10, money. Anathemas, section 11, religion. Anathemas, section 12, pornography. Beloved, I was terrified when I saw this, and I said, "Oh God, who can save us from this?" At that moment, my companion told me, "Read and understand," and he gave me Micah chapter 4. I was shown a scenario where the first parents of the human race lived happily with what we now know the least. This after they were already on the ground of sin. They had a garden that they cultivated where the food was there and the water. They had something small to live on. They had durable, modest, warm clothing, millstones where the grain was ground, clay pots, something simple. Their work in the garden, that was the food they received, both physical and spiritual food. I was told that everything else was a burden imposed by anathemas that the enemy imposed more and more on man to make them slaves. Only he who understands, trusts, and executes will be able to enjoy it, he told me. I asked, "What is then anathema?" I was answered, "Everything that occupies the place of God is a desire for the things of this world, is to feed the external and internal self, is to remove God from the first place and put some of these anathemas in the first place," that is Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 4, "and will be guilty of treason in the judgment," and gave me Revelation chapter 14 verse 8. I left there and exhorted the 3 young men not to acquire anything, nothing from that place, since everything was anathema. But they came out whispering and with their mobile in hand. I saw the man I left resting next to the road, standing on the edge of a cliff. I went to him and I saw that he was looking at what had happened in the plain. At this point, a very strong sneeze came to this man and he swung, and I saw how he was going to fall. So I hold him, but I saw when he went into the void, because I could not catch him, I saw him fall, and I saw how he exhaled his last breath. I asked the 3 young people for help, but they did not give it. I ran towards the injured person and saw how another person tried to lift him without positive results. At that moment, I shouted, "Lord, my God, help me. Where are you?" At this moment, my companion arrived and told me, "The great I Am is getting ready. He is in his last preparations. He is not oblivious to any pain, and they will soon have an end. But you, despite the affliction, exhort and instruct. Do not faint. Encourage your being, because even the greatest is yet to come. Now you are with those on foot, and soon it will be with those on horseback. No one who carries anathemas will be able to survive, because they will fall on top of them and crush them." I fell to the ground in pain and suffering, and I said, "This is terrible. Who will free me from this body of death?" At that moment, he answered me, Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 to 4. "Why do you live in opulence, knowing that your inheritance is not this?" he told me. "Don't you know that he who has 2 cloaks should give a cloak to the one who does not have? Why then are you so anxious to accumulate goods?" And what you have, for who will it be? My eye sees your houses full of anathemas, full of luxuries and accumulation of gluttony and pleasures, mean in seeking me, and delightful in their goods. Have not the rich yet turned to me, recognizing that their anathemas were distancing them from me? Then at that moment he gave me Psalms chapter 40. For a moment he was silent, and raised his right hand to heaven and said, As I live, that no one who accumulates earthly treasures will be able to participate in the eternal inheritance. His people will praise him. And he said to me, Psalms 103, and his inheritance will recognize them. And he dictated to me Psalms chapter 18. This that has been shown to you is the natural and subtle way by which the unthinking man loses not only his life but his soul. They live after their consents, and with it will come their destruction. I was told, beloved, not to keep quiet and to fully expose the anathemas, because no one can be kept in such a situation. At that time I was given Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 20, and also Joshua chapter 7 verse 12 to 13. I give it to you, dear brothers, as I received it. May God give us understanding and wisdom to be able to discern and realize what the Lord wants to tell us. God bless you all.